Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. Now, we are a weekly podcast focusing on the paranormal, the supernatural, and the metaphysical. Now, join us for thought-provoking discussions on paranormal phenomena, conspiracies, and all things unexplained as we talk to researchers and investigators about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs and aliens, urban legends, cryptids, and so much more. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at www.paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching and or listening, and we hope to see you for the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. So grab yourself a drink and a snack, turn the lights off on the way back, find yourself a nice comfy spot, and enjoy this episode of Paranomaly. Stay with us, folks. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. We have Aage Nost on with us again. He is fantastic. He's an author, on-air personality, he's seasoned aircraft pilot, hypnotherapist, UFO researcher, and cosmic explorer. He's a student of many sciences, including metaphysics, theoretical physics, and different forms and therapies of spirituality. Aage also has a show as well. It's Broadcast Team Alpha Show with his co-host Nori Love. Aage, thank you so much for being here. How have you been?
Oh, it must be good. Nobody's complaining. I'm just having the time of my life here.
Good.
Yeah.
So what are we hearing through the grapevine about UFOs, aliens, things like that? Anybody hear anything about any recent news with some disclosure going on?
Yeah, some of the stuff that we hear, we could imagine that half of it is not so, but the other half could be really, really close to the truth. And at times, we don't know which half that is. So it gets a little complicated out there, but I think, when it comes to the extraterrestrial, how they operate and what they do, the best thing I think we can do is to listen to the ones that has been invited onto the ships or abducted and had communications with them, because that is first-hand information.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a lot of those,
and that tends to be, the information that we get from abductees and contactees tends to be way more in depth, way more at another level, than what you're getting from Lou Elizondo. They are. Absolutely. Not to. I don't want to denigrate, what they're doing and the work and everything, so long as, they're not, unwittingly part of some kind of psyop. But they are on the very surface of the phenomenon, still. And I think it's self-evident that that's the case.
Yeah. And we're going to start talking here about the UFO issue, extraterrestrial, maybe the Nazi flying discs and so on. But in the second half, I want to talk about what's behind the curtain, the near-death experiences. What are some of the experiences that people can expect? And also the permanent death experience when you don't come back, but you're there. And as an astral travel, I have run into those. And I've been able to communicate with people that died and not coming back. And we can talk a little bit about what to expect. Because the rumor on the street, is that sooner or later that'll happen to most of us, right? well, I'm not into rumors, but it's a persistent one. So, so we just got to go with it. And there is things that we can prepare for to make it a good experience. But the ones that don't prepare and don't know anything, not all of the experiences are good when you drop the body. So I'm going to say that for you, those of you that want to hear some of that, stay with us to the second half of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very exciting. Got a little bit of everything going in there. We have ancient technology. We have some abduction stuff, and we have the end stuff happening at the end.
Yep.
So yes, beginning to the middle to the end. It's going to be a great show, folks. All right, Jim, go ahead and get us started here.
So why don't we go back to sort of pre-war Germany, and again, I just want to let the audience know my knowledge is limited here. As far as this, I've been sort of catching up on this. It's very complex, and we don't have a lot of substantial, solid, documents. A lot of really concrete evidence for this. So I think some of this is bound to be in the realm of speculation. But I think somewhere in the 1930s, in pre-war Germany, the Nazi leadership, the rumor is, made contact with one or more races, became aware of their technology, and initiated a major effort to communicate and I think ultimately acquire that technology, probably for the purpose of, I would think, military superiority and expansion and so forth. Although I know there's some other ideas, some people have that the Germans were on a different trajectory and then became under the influence of something else. But why don't we start there and pre-war 1930s Germany? What information do you have about?
Oh, there's a lot of information that dates back to over 100 years ago. I have a little bit of an advantage because I got to be good friends with a guy here in Tucson, Colonel Wendell Stevens. And Wendell Stevens, he was interviewed, I think, 2 or 3 times on my TV show here when I had that for 6 years. And I was over at his house a few times when we were sitting into the late hours, and he was showing me pictures and documents and stuff. Some of it was in German, and he couldn't read German, so I helped him out a little bit with that. And there was some really interesting stuff. And it became apparent that Germany had their own Roswell in 1936. That was down in Bavaria. There was a big craft that crashed.
And that is southern Germany, the Bavaria region?
Yeah, southeastern part, over there. And before that, all the way back, there were records all the way back to 1919. There were 3 young ladies. One of them was Maria Orticius. They call her Maria Orsik here because they can't do the German slang. Maria, she was a channel. And she got messages from someone that gave her, to her, it felt like they were talking in her head, and they told her to write. So she started writing, and something took over her hand and wrote messages.
Now, can I pause you for a second? Now, is this Maria Ortiz at this time? I know I can't pronounce her name. Is she already under the auspices of the Nazi government at this moment when she's getting these first channel communications? Or is she independent?
She was independent at that time, but she got into the Grill Society, and that kind of became semi-government at the time, and later on it became totally under government. But when she started out, she was just on her own. She got these messages, and she wrote them down. And the writing that she wrote, much of it was in old cuneiform. Now, explain that one. She didn't speak cuneiform. She couldn't write cuneiform,
so
but she made the symbols.
She was automatic writing.
Automatic.
So she didn't. She was automatic writing, and her hand was. They were essentially connected with her and utilizing her own faculties in her hand and writing it for her. That kind of channeling.
Actually, she became the instrument of the one that was coming through her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she wrote drawings. She created drawings of the concept that they told her, because they told her, we will give you this information so you can build a ship and come and visit us. So she made drawings of the different components of the ship, and she didn't understand nothing to speak of, because she was basically a young 19-year-old girl that had very limited education at the time. But she, for some reason, she met someone that looked at it and they thought, this is interesting. I know somebody. So she got the drawings and the writings in front of a high-ranking military scientist. And he looked at it and he said, that's not a 19-year-old girl that did this. So he took it to his people, and they started looking at the drawings, and they decided that there's something here that we need to investigate. And they did, and they started experimenting with it. But it doesn't seem like they really got much. They started making round airplanes in about 1932, 34, something like that. And then in 1936, they had a crash down in Bavaria. That ship, they were trying to get into it. It said in the papers that I read that they tried to get into it, used anything. They used blowtorches, they used explosives. Nothing will touch the surface on it. They couldn't get in. And then something happened. They were going around touching different parts on the outside, and somehow they touched the right spot, so that the clamshell came open. It didn't say clamshell. It said part of the side of the craft opened up into stairs, and they could walk in.
Was there any details about the craft itself? Was this a disc-shaped craft, egg-shaped craft, cigar-shaped?
It's supposed to have been somewhat oblong. I kind of interpreted that as a cigar-shaped craft. And actually, Wendell Stevens have some books out there where he talk about some of these things in limited ways. But there's some really interesting stuff in his books about the German discs program. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and the documents, were these military documents, or what agency or government organization was there?
It had the swastika on them, so I presume it was military document.
Okay.
That talked about this. Now,
I see.
also, when they got into the ship, not much of what was in there, they could not understand much of it. But they started, and they were able to back engineer some of it, evidently, because right about 1940, 41, something like that, they started to create this thing called the Glocke, or the bell, which was supposed to have been the drive in the craft. And that is when you fire up the Glocke, then it creates a bubble, a plasma bubble around it. Everything inside of the plasma bubble neutralizes gravity. And that
And so,
is,
so we're talking about, electrogravitic propulsion, that Stephen Greer mentions, in terms of
yeah,
okay.
but there's different kinds of that too. You have one electrogravitic type of propulsion where the mind is involved to direct it to do things. This one was just flat
Mhm.
the Glock. There were no mind manipulation involved of the device. It was built.
Mhm.
I could go into how the Glock it was built in order to create this. They had a core, a metal core, and I think it may have been an iron core. And then they had a chamber on the outside, isolated from the core, where it wasn't that big according to the drawings. It was maybe a lot that wide, and they put red mercury in it. And then outside of that, there was an opening, and then another circular drum-like uh, contraption that also had red mercury in it. When they fired it up, the inside went one direction in rotation up to 30,000 RPM, and the one on the outside rotated the other way at think about maybe 30 some thousand RPM also. And when they did this, there were, see, mercury can create electricity. It's been proven that you can do that. So
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
was one of the effects of it. But it also created this plasma bubble that grew. The higher they got into the RPMs, the plasma bubble grew bigger. And when it got so wide that it was encompassing the whole craft, you could walk up to it and you just lift it with your hands. And it drifted slowly down to the surface. So,
And so there's nothing, deleterious about the field itself. So a human can walk right into this type of field. This what would you call this type of field? This
well,
electro
it's a plasma field, and
plasma
yeah,
field.
you can walk into it, but when you're in the bubble, you are also weightless.
And are you also kind of phased out of space time essentially? Is it just a gravity, or is it just a bubble that neutralizes gravity, or are you in some sense outside of this space time reality inside the bubble?
The outside of the space-time reality, I don't really know anything about because I don't
Hmm.
remember reading anything about that.
Uh-huh.
There were technical information, but what goes beyond that, I'm not sure. I hear that it's said to be a time travel device, but that is just, what I'm concerned, hearsay. Sometimes hearsay is good, so we don't know. But this is
Hmm.
something that they developed, and it became very powerful. So they took the Glocke and they started experimenting with it inside their own round airplanes, which conform to the drawings that Maria Ortichus had created. So they used that inside the ships, and the Haunebu 1 became an they call it anti-gravity. I would call it a gravity nullification craft because it could float, but it wasn't very good. It was unstable, and when they tried to fly it, it kept crashing on them, and it killed the pilot. So they just left that one alone. They couldn't find anybody to fly it anymore. But then they created the Haunebu 2, where they had gotten rid of some of those loose ends that they hadn't figured out on the previous one. And that Honeyboo 2 became a phenomenal aircraft. It became a spacecraft as well. In fact, they took it and they flew it to the moon, and they went around the moon and mapped the moon. In one of the craters, they found a very, very old building. It was each arm of it was over a mile or quite a bit more than a mile long. It looks like. I have a picture on it on the website that Nori and I have, the broadcastteamalpha.com. You can go into the picture gallery and you see a picture of the actual building that is shaped like a swastika. So, being German, they fell in love with that thing. So they came back and they told the high command that we found this place on the moon that I think we should create a base up there. And they went back and took a section of it in which they started rebuilding. And that is where they are today, or one of their bases today. See,
Okay.
the Germans never lost the war. The military army capitulated and signed some papers they did not have the authority to sign.
And they wanted perhaps to give the impression that they lost the war. They wanted maybe to convince the Allies that they were defeated, and so that they could potentially, I think, mainly keep their space program going, because I think that that's where they were putting all the eggs into that basket. Couple points of confusion here in this same period. So you have other UFO projects, you have other Nazi flying disc programs that I wonder if maybe on one level, because of compartmentalization and the German military-industrial complex, some of these efforts to sort of replicate ET flying craft were just totally blind and had no idea about electrogravitic propulsion, etc. Because you have some of these craft that didn't seem to be using anything like electrogravitic propulsion, but were using turbines and things like that, and things invented by Victor Schauberger, a kind of vortex type of technology, which may be interesting advanced technology, but did not, to me, seem at all reminiscent of anti-gravity technology. Do you think that it's just because they had multiple efforts going because of compartmentalization? Some of these efforts they just were not aware of, the actual anti-gravity technology? Or do you think that those projects were red herrings that were meant to distract attention from the real projects?
They were the early ones. They started in the late 30s. There was round aircraft that had jet engines underneath. One of them had 2 jet engines, and they were very fast, but they also kept crashing. So they really couldn't. It was tough to find pilots to fly airplanes that keep crashing on you. So I know I'm a pilot, but but I would say they graduated into the different technologies. As soon as they put Die Glocke with a bell in it, they were home. Now they had something. Everything that was before that went away, except for the flying wing. The Horton brothers, they kept the flying wing going because that was a good bomber. It was almost invisible in the airport radar too. But that was about all they kept. And then they have the Honeyboo 1 that graduated into the Honeyboo 2, which they had many of it. According to Wendell Stevens, he said there were 163 known flying discs that he knew of. And
wow, okay.
that was a lot of discs. And when the Honeyboo 2 had been around for a while, they flew it back and forth to the moon, and they kept, populating up there and doing what they did because there's air on the moon. There's evidence of that. but not as much as here. It's similar to about 18,000 feet on Earth. So it is a lot less. But think about it. In the Himalayas, there's people living in the Himalayas at 18,000 feet all their life. So they're okay. We get used to it. We just breathe deeper.
Yeah, that's interesting. There is. I wondered about this. This is the first I'm hearing about this. I did not think that there was air on the moon, but just researching for this podcast and going into this, there was some Hungarian. I can't remember his name. I think his last name started with a T, and he supposedly had some kind of documentation that the Germans had gone to the moon in the 1930s, the early 1930s, and said that yes, that there was air up there, and that there was also vegetation, is what he said.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if he meant, like in bases, vegetation, artificially, grown vegetation in bases, or what. But there is some testimony to this effect that there must be some atmosphere then, some thin atmosphere. For there to be air on the moon, there must be an atmosphere.
Yeah,
right?
There is. And I have NASA prints actually that show the edge of the moon, and then there's this tiny little layer of another color that follows the horizon. And if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, go into the picture gallery, you'll see pictures of that. And also on YouTube and the website, Nori and I did a video documentary on all the pictures of buildings and structures, and one of those pictures show a crater that is green in the bottom. That is vegetation you're talking about. So it is there. You're exactly right. There is vegetation, but not much. Not much, but it is vegetation.
Now I wonder if that is vegetation, if it's natural vegetation, or if it's, somebody's been trying to, what's the word, make the planet, what's that word, to take a planet and
terraforming.
Terraforming. It seems more likely to me that, but I could be wrong, that's maybe evidence that someone's trying to terraform the surface of Mars. Maybe the atmosphere of itself is a product of terraforming efforts and is not natural.
Oh, I was talking about the moon. Did I say
that's
Mars?
What I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not much vegetation, but in the bottom of craters where you may have moisture, especially in the polar regions, you may have some vegetation that show up green on pictures.
Interesting. And also, it was mentioned, I think, by this same Hungarian that they had built, I think in the same period in the 1930s, an underground base. Did you see any documents, or do you know anything to that effect?
On the moon?
On the moon.
I think there's probably more than one, because the moon is not a safe place. There are probably around a couple of million people that live up there on the surface. The biggest part of population of the moon is inside in the cavern. And not all of them get along with each other. There is times when there is conflict, because we have videos of explosions on the moon. And there is a document that you can get your hands on that explains some of that, and that is I'll think of it in a second. There is I'll think of it. There is a NASA document that was classified for many years, and then it was released when the time ran out, and we can read it now. They talk about activity on the moon from 300 years ago, when they first invented the telescope. They saw light flashes, and they saw shadows moving across the moon. Haley, you know, Haley's Comet, the guy that discovered that, he talked about he saw a large pencil moving across the surface of the moon. So there's been activity up there. And but a lot of it, the manufacturing and stuff is probably mostly on the inside.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I had heard that rumor that the Germans had built an underground base on the moon in the
Mhm.
1930s, I found that a little bit implausible. Like one thing to, maybe in those early days set up some kind of structure, on the surface, but it would be, to me anyway, a much more involved um, uh, process to actually mine, have equipment that could bore, into the moon and then create
Yeah.
an underground base underneath the surface. But I guess it might have been thought, you know, prior to even, going, that you would have to build the base underground if there was going to be any kind of base, because there's no maybe magnetic field like we have to protect inhabitants from radiation from the sun and so
Yeah.
forth. So it would just be a necessity that was pre-planned. That you would
I,
have to build it underground.
I got a comment on that, and that is that that is what we are told by NASA. We don't know if there is a magnetic field because they lie about at least half of it.
True. Yeah.
So we don't know.
We,
And when
we
they
really don't know.
there's no
Yeah.
air, we know they lie about that
It,
because we got the pictures. And what we are discovering by looking at the moon and all the things up there is that there is really next to nothing that we're told that is true.
that's the truth. They're lying about so much of it. I mean, think
Yeah,
of, all the lines about Mars, and everything. That, yeah, we really kind of have to throw all of it out, and
yeah.
and
I
and
wanna.
really rebuild our understanding.
I did mention the Haunebu too, and let me talk just a little bit about the specs on that craft because it is so
Sure,
incredible.
sure.
They had a Thule engine that was a Thule Taconator 7C was the engine they called it. They had magnetic directional impulse gyroscope to keep it stabilized, and they could go from 6,000 kilometers to 21,000 kilometers an hour. That could be about 13,000 miles an hour. So yeah, they get up and go. The hull was double hull with a cooling gel inside, and the metal was made of a metal that I have never heard of since. It's just something the Germans used. It's called the Victalian metal. Victalian metal. It had a crew of 9 people, and it had 6 cannons on it. And one of the armament that they had on it was called a Pristron tube. A Pristron tube, which they called, the German name for that was Die Motorstoppel, which means the motor stopper. And that one is also had, I saw the specs on the A test flight. It went from the surface to 60,000 feet in 3 minutes. Now that is quite fast, straight up against gravity. Now, also, when they said they had all these guns and the the motor stopper on it, let me give you about a minute worth of history here, because there was one time that the supreme commander of the invasion of Germany said we can still lose that war. When he said that, that was about a month before the end of the war, because in one night the Allied sent 600 bombers in over Germany at night. with the lights off, and they dropped bombs.
Over,
And
you mean over Dresden?
yeah, the Germans came up behind the fleet, and they picked aircraft and they fired the pressure tube, and that is a directional EM pulse. So when that hit the airplane, it burned out the electronics, engines quit, and down they go. The Allied forces lost a third of their fleet that in one night. And that's why Eisenhower said, we can still lose this war. So
And does
yeah,
that also potentially explain the fervor during that period in terms of, you know, carpet bombing Dresden? Do you think that maybe there was a kind of alarm set off by the recognition that the Germans, you know, suddenly had this superior technology, and that maybe is what drove, because there's something really puzzling about, you know, the Dresden bombings is in that they completely surrendered all of their values, you know, that they were, you know, sort of differentiating themselves with the Germans
yeah. Dresden had no military value whatsoever. It was just a sleeping town, mostly older people that was just retired and so on. And they burned it to the ground. There was nothing alive. Well, I don't know about that, but there was nothing standing after they were done bombing it. They did that basically to piss the Germans off, to show them that we have no compassion for you, we will kill every one of you. That's basically the message they got. And after that, they lost a third of their fleet of bombers. The Allied forces realized we cannot win this war with these weapons we do not understand, and we need to do a ground invasion. And they threw the ground invasion together. They could not have picked a worse spot than Omaha Beach. They had fortresses all over the beach, and they were just killing everybody coming off the boats.
Yeah, I've always found that very strange. I mean, there had to have been coastline that did not have bunkers and redoubts, you know. There must have been sections of coastline that were not that well protected, but yet they chose Omaha Beach and Juneau and Sword and so forth.
Oh, yeah, they could have gone a lot of places, but they could have come across, there would have been no opposition.
Yeah, you would think with all of that coastline.
Well, that's what it was.
So let's rewind a little bit. Staying in World War II, though, the Foo Fighters that Allied pilots were seeing, do you think that these were the German Haunebu 2 craft, or do you think that they were ET? Like, I know that a lot of people have this, and it's kind of a plausible narrative that, you know, that the advent of all of these sightings, these UFOs in the skies during World War II, had everything to do with nuclear weapons development. And the ETs were showing themselves during this period because we were developing nuclear weapons, and evidently they were concerned about this. And that's one narrative. The other narrative is that they were not ETs and that these were German flying discs that Allied pilots were seeing.
I kind of think it could be three things. Could be we have this concept that I know about that because we were taught about this in aviation education. Ball lightning. That there's a magnetic affinity to metal in ball lightning. It can travel towards metal. So that is kind of, I doubt it, but it's there.
It could be a percentage.
Yeah,
of
maybe 1%. I don't know, but and then we have something we see today. We have orbs everywhere. People take pictures of orbs all the time. They see orbs. That could be part of it. And then, of course, the Germans did develop a ball that is about what the size of a basketball that had a little bitty gravity nullification system in it. It's a very simplified one. And that one could be directed. But they did have that. But I'm not so sure if it actually put out a ball of light around it. That did not show in the drawings that I saw over at Wendell Stevenson's place. But he did have a drawing of the ball.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
That's an interesting photograph.
Yeah. You know, I didn't, when I talked about the Honeybee 2, there also was a Honeybee 3 and a Honeybee 4.
I was not aware of that. I was aware of the Honeybee 1 and 2, and I thought that's all there was. There was a 3 and 4.
Yeah, that's what they're telling us, but the papers show different. They even had a cigar spacecraft that they had the drawings of, and Colonel Wendell Stevens, he thought they probably made one, but we have no evidence of it actually, physical evidence of them having made one. But inside that cigar, there were 4 compartments, I think, where they had a smaller Honeybee inside of it. So it was pretty big. But also the Honeybee 3, there was 71 meters across. That is 200 feet across. That's pretty big.
Wow, so that's really big. What is a football field? How many feet is
I have no idea.
400 feet or something? That's pretty large. That's larger than I would have thought.
It had a crew of 32 people. And there were 19 known test flights with no crashes. So they kept on with this one. It could go to 40,000 kilometers an hour. Now, that top speed that was listed. And then there was the Honeybee 4, which is very, very controversial. Most people say that, they had the drawings, but they never made one. According to Stevens, yeah, they did. He said they probably made 2. One of them was more like an experimental thing that they but it was 120 meters or 393 feet across. Now that's big. That one they used to go back and forth to the moon with and move material, move valuables probably, and people back and forth to the moon. And they sent one, according to Stevens, he said they sent one Honeybee 4 on to Mars. But they lost contact with it, and they don't know what happened.
Augie, how long did you say that was?
The
length of the
120 meters, that 393 feet across for the Honeybee 4.
So just to put that in perspective, 394 feet, a football field is 360 feet.
Wow.
So that's
a huge craft.
Yes, that is huge.
That's like mothership size craft.
Yes.
Yeah. And they had armament on that one too. The drawings and also the pictures you can find on Broadcast Team Alpha in the picture gallery, they show a Honeybee 2. Actually, they had it on Honeybee 1 too. They took the gun turret on a Panzer tank, which is a battle tank. They took the top gun turret, took it off, turned it upside down, and bolted it to the underneath side of the craft. So they were sitting in there under the Honeybee 2. They could have a tank firing at whatever they were firing at, which I never heard that they actually did that. But yeah, there you go. There's the Honeybee. and you can see there is people around it. This is an actual photo. Yeah, there you go.
Which one is that? Is that the Hanabu 1 or the Hanabu 2?
This is probably a Hanabu 1.
Mm-hmm. Now, I heard that there was massive trouble mounting guns onto these types of craft in the beginning, that it just could not be stabilized sufficiently to fire a cannon. But eventually they figured this out, though, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they figured it out because when they had electronic steering on it, and being had no gravity. In the Hanabi 1, I think they had the gyro still, and the 2 had the gyro too, and some of them at least. But the 3, they had no gyro in it. They had figured out so they could do the steering and the balancing of everything electronically.
Mm-hmm.
So these Germans were pretty sharp.
And then they were also, were they not mounting EMP type weapons on these things too? And there's testimony that Allied craft were encountering other craft in the sky, flying discs or what have you, that were disabling all of their electronics and so forth.
Yeah, they did do that, and that's something that if you have that, you become invincible, because all you have to do is to aim that Pristron tube at the other craft and fire, and the EM pulse will burn out the electronics, and there they go.
Yeah, it's a really powerful weapon, and when you think of how it's being used today, to bring down ET craft at supposedly a rate of like 1 per month, they bring down at these black sites out in the desert in the West. Some testimonies say that like 1 per month they bring down these ET craft at a rate of
sometimes even more, because there are crashes in other countries, and for some reason they all end up here in the US. Oh, hey, this is a good one. Let me give you something to think about. Remember Adamski back in the 1950s? He took pictures, and he was on the ships, and they took him to the moon, and he came back. Remember, he took some really good pictures of alien crafts, right?
Right.
If you look at the craft he took pictures of, they look exactly like a Hanabu 1 and a Hanabu 2.
Do they? Interesting.
Yeah.
So wasn't his narrative, though, that that he had made contact with
from Venus? Yeah.
Right. So do you think that was all a German psychological operation?
I think it was
the
Nazi Germans that came and visited him and said they were from Venus, because there is also someone else that had, not Adamski, but someone else said that they had a visit. They were visited by one, and they had a German accent. So I don't know. It's just.
So do you think that
a good story?
Yeah. So do you think that was the German strategy to sort of distract from their technological developments, to, if we can get everybody to think that it's ET, that they're extraterrestrials, this will be advantageous insofar as keeping it a secret?
I think so.
That seems plausible to me.
Yeah. Well, but the story goes on. We have now crafts that don't look like these anymore, and from the reports coming out of S4, and that's when somebody said, there was a whistleblower came out and said, we touched the craft and it was talking to you. It was like the craft was alive, it had intelligence, and it just talked to you. So
That sounds like the Rendlesham Jim Peniston
yeah.
testimony, the Rendlesham Forest case, where he touched it, and it felt like communication happened at the moment that he touched it.
Yeah.
Right. So before we move on, though, past World War II, do you know anything about the Thule Society or the Thule Society? I'm not sure how it's pronounced. The Thule Society or the Vril Society. What about the Vril crafts? Now, is that correspond with the Hanabu 1, 2, and 3, or were those a different line of German technological developments? I know Linda Moulton House said that there's some city, I could be pronouncing this wrong, I think in Germany, Pienemundo or Pienemunde or something that sounds like that, where they built these Vril crafts.
Yeah.
I know there was a Vril 1, and I don't know how many it
Werner
got up
von
to.
Braun, Werner von Braun was there too. But I think the Vril Society, that started before the year 1900. And in 1919, when Maria Ortiz started to get these channelings, then she became, or she already was possibly, a member of the Vril Society. That's why they call them the Vril Girls. And from there on, it was the Vril and the Thule Society. We don't hear anything about them, but they went underground. And it is my thought and good indication that they still exist, but they are a very private and secret society.
Now, Aldebaran or Aldebaran, I'm not sure how that star system is pronounced. Where did that first? Who was it that first said that the Germans made contact with extraterrestrials from Aldebaran? Was that Maria Ortiz?
Yeah.
Or that came from the Vril Society, that they were in communication with ETs from Aldebaran?
That
do you know anything
her,
about that? And
she came in her drawings. They told her that they were from what you call the Aldebaran system, and nobody knew where that was. That came later. I think it was put a name on it, and they named it after something that was similar. I don't know exactly how that came about, but
well, that's an interesting facet. So they were told that before that star system was even named.
Yeah, because I don't think they knew about it in 1919.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. You know,
and
there's a lot of things like that. You know, like the Dogon people in Africa. They said that the Sirius star system it's a double star. Back in the 1920s, they didn't know that. They thought it was one star. But later on, in the late, I think, 30s or 40s, they discovered, yeah, that's right, they're two stars. But the Dogon people, they knew that 20 years earlier.
Yeah, that there is a lot of things like that the ancients knew about astronomy well before Western science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, quite interesting. Getting back to the Aldebaran extraterrestrials, though, was there anything else? We have so little information, about this. What do you think? Now, I've always wondered, what do you think about this, Augie? Did the Germans really make contact in the 1930s with ETs from Aldebaran? Or was it the other way around? I tend to think that in reality, though it may not seem it, the extraterrestrials are really kind of running things. It seems to me that implausible that they were just kind of hanging out, and then the Germans made contact with them, and they just agreed to, offer technology or designs or information about technology. Or do you think it really was the other way around, and there's a whole agenda which is really more paramount by these Aldebaran ETs in terms of influencing Germany and German technological development,
Well,
and that they're really in control.
I don't know, but my impression was that she was contacted by them. The Aldebaran star system is 68 light years from here. So if we got to the speed of light, it'll still take a lifetime to get there. So there is interdimensional travel involved. Otherwise, I don't think they could get here.
There must be, yeah. Do you want to segue into that? I know we wanted to discuss that.
Yeah, we could a little bit, because ever so often I run into people that say, yeah, there is no such thing as UFOs, and definitely not extraterrestrials. But good think of it, you know, their star and their planet is so far away it'll take lifetimes to get here. How ignorant is that? When you think about it, what if they had 100,000 or 1,000,000 years of uninterrupted technological advance? Should they not have figured it out by then, how to travel faster than the speed of light? We're getting to that point right now. NASA is working on the engine that cannot be explained how it worked. Remember? They say it's going to go faster than the speed of light. So, and that's after 100 years? No. They travel faster than us. It's pretty simple, actually. All you have to do, there's one way, there's many, but if you had a craft that was able to set up a plasma bubble around you, you can do like they did on the Eldridge in the Philadelphia experiment. They had a magnetic generator in the back, in the middle, and the front of the ship. And they fired them up. A green fog was around the whole ship, and it disappeared. The only thing that was left was the indentation in the water. And that also disappeared after a little bit. That became invisible. And that means they were out of the physical visual range of vibration in the light spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So now, why not do the same with an aircraft? They do that. You accelerate the vibration of the craft until it, within that plasma bubble, go out of the physical, you get into a parallel level of existence where time and space do not exist as we know it. You can travel backwards, you can travel forwards, and you probably would do that by thinking yourself there, because now you become mind-matter interface machine, and you can travel forward to a spot and then collapse the bubble, and bingo, there you are.
Well, I really don't think that we're ready for another Philadelphia experiment. That, I mean, if people that's not familiar with it, when the ship disappeared and came back, sailors were melded into the metal.
Yeah.
So, you know, awesome theory, but not for us as of yet, anyway.
Well, you could say it's not for us, it's not for me, but I am sure that the Navy has experimented with it. And as we know, the Navy is in charge of the secret space program where they use these crafts.
Sure, and I can believe that because of like Stargates. So, you know, you're opening up that portal, a Stargate, and you're essentially walking right through.
Yeah.
So the Philadelphia experiment is basically the same concept. Now, I do believe that we've had Stargates for a long time.
Yeah, they found them in Iraq, laying in the desert. And one of them was sitting at the museum in Baghdad. That is probably the biggest reason.
So naturally occurring stargates. So these weren't the product of some ancient ET race that they had constructed way in the past. Do you think that these are natural things that occur on the planet's surface? I mean, that's my understanding,
Yeah.
but I've wondered about that.
Well, there was, there's a stargate that looks like a circle, and when you go through it, then things happen. I'm not so sure how that works, but they had it.
Yeah, definitely.
So what about?
And it had to have some way of dialing in where you was going. I mean, you could just walk into a wormhole and you could be anywhere. So there had to be a way to go in and out without anything changing.
Personally, I think that is by consciousness.
Yeah,
And that
I I found that problem just totally perplexing. How could they ever figure out how to reach a certain specific point in time, and then once I realized, consciousness is really the key to all of this, advanced technology, even beyond, wormholes and etc.
Mm-hmm.
With
And
consciousness, it makes sense. I can understand now how it's possible to really dial in where you want to go and future, past, etc.
Yeah, and there is actually some evidence to this that everybody can see, because I saw something in your chat room. Somebody said, I think it was Kelly that said, or whoever, I forget now who it was, about the fourth generation night vision goggles.
Yes, that was Kelly. Yes.
Kelly, yeah, there you go. Hi, Kelly. The thing is, if you get your hands on a fourth generation piece of night vision goggles, you go outside at night, point them into the sky, and sit there for a while, you're going to see ships going back and forth. There's a traffic jam up there. You can see the cigars, you can see triangles, round ones, and some of them going so fast that you can't follow them by the eyes. And they are there, but when you take the goggles off, they're not there anymore.
What are they picking up on?
They are picking up because the fourth generation night vision goggles are able to see higher into the light spectrum than what our eyes can do. So it is slightly
the visible light spectrum.
Yeah.
I
So
see.
they may be physical or they may be in the infrared structure. Some of them are actually red. So yeah, they could be in the infrared. So this is something that if you get, they're a little costly. They cost a few $1,000s to get one of these, but I have seen them for sale on auction sites for as little as $800. So you can get one of those, and they used one out there too for about that price. If you get your hands on those, you're going to have a blast. You're going to see stuff. And if you're a hunter, be careful when you go into the woods, because you're going to see animals. But when you take them off, the animals are not there anymore. Explain that one. That's what happened in Iraq when they, in the last war over there that the Bush family arranged for. They went over there and they got these fourth generation night vision goggles, and they gave it to the soldiers, that went out at night. And they came back with all kinds of complaints because they said something's wrong. We have the goggles on, we see people. We take them off, they're not there anymore. So they took the goggles away from the regular soldiers and just left them with the officers. They saw probably people, disembodied part, possibly, or another dimensional existence that they were able to see into.
So do you think it's mostly that, or do you think that, there's a lot of sort of beings, all these cryptids and so forth, that people catch glimpses of,
Yeah.
that are just simply phasing, raising they have some, through consciousness, or some kind of psionic capacity, they're increasing their vibration, and they're just moving their frequency outside of visible light. And I thought that would that not still technically be in the physical dimension, but just outside of physical light? Or do you think that when they disappear like that, when someone sees Bigfoot and it vanishes, that it's actually gone into a different dimension?
I think,
Or are they just, or they, mhm,
yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that they have a way, those beings have the capability of accelerating or slowing down the vibration of their physical vehicle to the point where they could just flat vibrate out of sight. And or they could be someone that is at a higher vibration or lower vibration coming into ours temporarily, like some of the
right,
strange, like the Mothman and things like that. Nobody
right.
see them in the daytime. It's usually in the evening, at night, and it is a strange one. To get you an example, I think it was Sean Connery that made the comment one time that he was wondering about the Queen of England because he was with her one time and her eyes changed. So they suddenly turned into cat eyes with slanted pupils. And when he looked at her really strange, he said, then they went back to normal again.
That's so interesting. I've heard of people that have seen the Queen's eyes do this and other people's eyes do this. Did not hear that story about Sean Connery.
Yeah,
That's really fascinating. Uh, well, do you want to segue into that rabbit hole?
I don't
Uh,
know. Some of that is
what's
above my
going
pay grade.
on? That's interesting, though. Yes, we've actually had a guest on who has seen this herself, who we're going to have back
Ah,
on the show in a couple weeks here.
wow.
Nicole Magic, who was working somewhere and witnessed this firsthand, this uh,
Yeah.
shift of the eyes, which seems to people like reminiscent of a reptile's eyes.
Yeah. There's so much, that fiction is stranger than truth.
Way strange, like maybe way stranger than truth,
Yeah.
like, or excuse me, truth is way stranger than fiction. Excuse me.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We are getting into the weeds a little bit here, but
Yeah.
it
Well,
is
maybe we'll
it's
get back
fun.
on.
It's
Yeah.
fun in the weeds.
It it can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where should we take it from here? Maybe.
You guys,
What
you
about the
guys,
break?
you guys figure that out. I'll just ride and coach with you. So I'll go with you. Go.
Let's swing back to the Nazis. World War II ends. The official narrative is that Germany was defeated. The Nazis were completely out of power. But this is not so, and we know this how, Augie. We have Operation High Jump, the Admiral Byrd expedition down to Antarctica, which was supposed to last 8 months, and he comes back in 3 weeks, I think, or something.
Yeah.
And there's casualties. What about this?
Yeah.
And
He limped home. Yeah, that was. you know the amazing thing on those papers? Federal law says that when you classify something, the classification expires in 20 years. Operation High Jump is still classified.
Is that so? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why would that be the case? Some people really discount, even like Richard Dolan says, I don't believe in the whole Operation High Jump conspiracy because we went back there. I think he says, months later and didn't have any problem,
Yeah, of course. They
and
didn't
you
try
think
to kill him.
that, right, or maybe they went to a different part of,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but maybe they went to a different part of Antarctica. I think the Germans were just concentrated in New Swabia or New Schwabenland.
Yeah.
I think the Germans
Yeah, that's where
called
they
it.
started out. They started with an ice cave there, and they kept bringing people down there, and they brought soldiers down there, and the soldiers, after a while, they just oh, wait a minute, there's only guys here. We need women too. So they actually, the Germans, they abducted women and took them down there. In fact, there was this one story that I read a long time ago about there was a ship. There was probably in the late 40s, early 50s, that there was leaving Florida going to New York because they had got a whole bunch of women on it that was supposed to get going into a school where they were being taught about beauty and fashion and stuff like that, and they got a whole bunch of young women that was going on that ship. The ship never arrived, and when they started investigating it, they found out that it was a German ship that was renamed, and the crew was German. So I'm theorizing here, but chances are that ship with, I think it was 80 or so women on it that just disappeared, maybe went to Antarctica. We don't know. But the guys down there, they wanted some women there too, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, and they needed personnel, I think, to man their space programs, which really expanded. And I have heard, and I can't remember whose testimony this is, that at some point the Germans really subjugated, post World War II, really subjugated the Western powers beneath the waterline, unbeknownst to the general public. The Germans basically put the Western powers in a corner and sort of took over dominance, and I think forced them into some kind of agreement. And as part of that agreement, they wanted people.
Yeah.
They wanted people and brought into their programs, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think and I know there's different theories on this, but what was it, Todd? I think you were just looking into this. The UFOs over Washington, and what was it, 1954? Some people believe that was the Germans making a show of force to Washington, D.C., that they have technological superiority over the West.
Well, that's funny because that was 1952. 1952 UFOs over Washington, and that's where we was talking about Eisenhower and the how it kind of moved together with him and the treaty with, was it the treaty with the aliens that he signed?
Yeah, I'm not so sure it was a treaty, actually. I think it was more like, well, you're going to do it anyway. So basically just didn't oppose them because he knew their technology was so far in advance that he didn't want the conflict.
Right. Yes. There was something with it. I can't remember because I know that he disappeared. I don't know if it had to, they said he was taken away and he went and talked to these extraterrestrials, and there was supposed to be something signed or something happened, and it just it coincided with 1952 because I believe was he running for president in 1952, and then all of a sudden all this ET stuff started happening, the UFOs over Washington, and then all this different UFO things with extraterrestrials, things like that. It was just very, very interesting.
I think though that the president before, Truman, he is the one that made the agreement with the extraterrestrials and basically handed the whole mess to Eisenhower, and Eisenhower was pissed. He was really angry because now I got this whole thing in my lap and I can't do anything about it. So
and he had no control. He had lost control over
the
military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
that was 1954 when Eisenhower, he was at Palm Springs, California on a winter holiday and disappeared in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And allegedly met with some representatives of an extraterrestrial race.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people think that the content of that dialogue was about nuclear weapons and that they wanted Eisenhower to cease and desist with nuclear weapons development, and that Eisenhower refused basically because he thought that the Russians, would never do the same and that this would be putting America in jeopardy.
Yeah. What's Kelly saying here? Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Germans, they spread out. There wasn't only at base 211, they were also in South America, and there were more than one base in Antarctica, actually. One was inside a mountain, and the other one was under the ice cap. And the one inside the mountain, we have a Google Earth photo of the entrance to that. So you may have seen that one. It's been floating around for a few years.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, why did they go to Antarctica? What's the mystery with why Antarctica? And I've heard that there's some rumors that they found something there. Some people think that they found ruins of an ancient technological civilization. Some people think that they found an entrance into subterranean caverns where there's some inner Earth species. I know the Thule Society, I think the story with them is that they were in contact allegedly with some inner Earth species which had access points at the poles in Antarctica and the North Pole. Do you know anything about that, or what did they find in Antarctica and why Antarctica?
I don't really know exactly what they found, but there is some writing that talks about that the Germans were able to, they found a way to contact the people on the inside of the cavern of the Earth in the South Polar region. And they found a couple of ways to get there. One of them was a hole from the surface, and the other one was from under the water. They said that they had to go something like 31 degrees or something like that for a certain period of time with a U-boat. And when they came down underneath, then they can go back up, and they were on the inside. So on broadcastteamalpha.com, I have a picture in the picture gallery showing a map that was written in German, and it's still there, written in German, because that's the way I put it. That shows the entrance, for one thing, where it came in, and also the land mass and the water, and they have names on the different continental bodies down there. So you can go look at that. I don't know where it is on the picture gallery. You may have to go hunting for it, because there is over 100 pages of pictures, 5,000 pictures in there. That unbelievable stuff that you will find.
Mm-hmm.
But that
That's
that first time I saw that map was at Wendell Stevens' in his living room. He showed it to me, and he says, "What's it say?" And I looked at that and I said, "I'll be damned, this is the real thing." So I stumbled through it. My German is a little rusty, probably more rusty now than it was 20 years ago. But I was able to stumble through and tell him about what it was there, and he said, "Yeah, that makes sense." He said, "Somebody else told me that too." So that map you will find, and that explains the inside of the Earth, where the land masses are, and that was something that was written on German. It's a big map. There was it had swastika, couple of stamps of swastikas on it, and it's obviously a Nazi map.
interesting.
Yeah, there you go. That's part of it. Yep, there is other pictures too. Gosh, you guys are sharp. You can find these pictures right away.
So just to clarify, now they're talking about, so some people believe that, there's just
There,
these really, really large caverns underneath the crust.
yeah,
And then there's some people that think, I believe Max Spears, always thought that that the hollow earth theory was real, that there was another sun or something down there, and that there's oceans and that there's other continents, which I've always found, difficult to fathom. But, there is a lot of, controversy over this.
yep, absolutely.
So what
And
we've got here from, go ahead. Yeah.
no, what I was going to say that for the nuts and bolt people out there that don't believe a thing unless the government tell them so, go to broadcastteamalpha.com, go into the picture gallery, and you will find a NASA print that was taken in 1972, I think, something like that, and it was taken by the ESA 7 satellite, 32,000 miles in the air in a stationary orbit right above the North Pole, taking a picture straight down. It shows an 800-mile wide hole at the North Pole because the computer, they forgot to slide the ice sheet over to cover it up. And there's the picture, a round hole at the North Pole. And there is a reason why I actually believe this picture is real. Because in 1911 and 1912, Fridtjof Nansen, a Norwegian explorer, tried to go to the North Pole to be the first one to make it there. He wrote 2 books, one on the first trip and one on the second. The one on the first one, I have the books. Actually, it's written in Norwegian, so it wouldn't help you much. But he said that he was going north on the ice. He got to the 80th degree north, straight towards the pole. He got to the 81st, got to the 82nd, and he got to the 83rd, and he kept going straight ahead, and he got to the 82nd again. And he said, "No, wait a minute, there's something wrong." So he turned around, and he got back to the 83rd. And he said, "This is, I forget the language, what he actually said, but he kept going back and forth. He could not find anything further north than 83 degrees in a few minutes. So if you take 83 degrees, that's 7 degrees left to the North Pole, isn't it? Shy of 7. If you make a circle out of that, it becomes a circle about 800 miles wide. That is why I think that NASA print is real, because written in 1912, Fridtjof Nansen told us there were nothing north of 83. Of course, he went home and he he declared it to be the North Pole because I couldn't find anything further north. He says, my instrument is wrong. The sextant that he was using, he said, there's something wrong with it. It does not work okay. And of course, he declared it to be the North Pole at 83rd degree northerly latitude. That didn't go over with the scientists, so he had to go back again.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing happened, but this time they accepted it. So he is supposed to have been to the North Pole.
Now, what about this ice-free region that some people have claimed to encounter? There's been expeditions where they've run into a completely ice-free, warm climate, seemingly, region in Antarctica. Now, is this...
Well, there's volcanic activity underneath, and there is lava, a bubble that is there that heats the ground up. So I can understand how that would happen.
But why is that? Because that's not official knowledge. That's not officially accepted that exists in Antarctica.
Oh yeah, we got
Why
the
would
picture.
That be kept?
Yeah,
there's a picture of this.
Oh yeah, we got the pictures. Admiral Byrd took pictures of it too, so we got those pictures. It's not arguable. The Germans took pictures of it, and there's a lot of pictures available of structures that came out of underneath the ice. So there was a civilization there in Antarctica before.
Yes, it seems.
So let me do this because we're going through a lot of things here, and time is not with us here. Jim, I want to go beyond this a little bit and talk about some near-death experience stuff.
Yeah.
It's getting down to the last half hour, and I would love to talk about this and delve into it. Aage, you was talking about two things. You was talking about near-death experiences and the end. Take us from the beginning there to near-death experiences, and then we'll just finish right out with what happens when we are dead.
Well, there are thousands and thousands of people that have had near-death experiences where they die on the operating table and they have an experience outside of their physical body, looking back at themselves, and they're just hanging around to see what's going on. Or some that, let's say, in a car accident, suddenly find themselves outside of themselves, and then they get pulled through a tunnel, going through a kind of a shiny looking tunnel, and they go through and they see other people going through the tunnel. And then when they get to the other end, maybe their mom or somebody that has already expired is there, says, hey son, you can't come here yet, you got more work to do, you got to go back. So now they go back, and they're back here talking about what they saw. Then again, there are others that they don't see the tunnel at all. They just find themselves in the presence of someone. Maybe they are in a white robe, or they are otherwise dressed, and they're going through a life review. They go back to the time when they were born, and they relive every moment of their life all the way up to the present day when they die back on earth. When they did good things for someone, they feel the exhilaration, the love, and the pleasure that person had. You get to feel it. If you screwed somebody over and they went bankrupt, or they did other nasty things to someone, you get to experience their agony. And you then, like it says in the Bible, God will judge you. You are the one that gets to judge you. I use the word judge, is probably not the right one, more like experience and discern the learning experience of what you did. And then there could be many, many different ways this come through, but everybody seems to go through a life review. So now,
I thought,
yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, I thought that there was statistics, and this was a point of interest that I wanted to bring up to you, that only 20% of near-death experiences, or 1/5 or something, include the life review. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that there's a couple of researchers who have mentioned this number, and I've always found that to be one of the most interesting sort of things about it.
Yeah.
Why is there the variance, between the near-death experiences? Why are only a percentage experiencing the life review, and some aren't?
Well,
I've,
I think I got ahead of myself, because the ones that die and don't come back, they all will have that life review. But the ones that
yeah,
come
that's
back,
interesting.
they may not have needed that because they have more of their life going on, more experiences to learn from. So when they then go the second time, then they may not come back. So then they will experience the life review. That's
Yeah,
what I
that
was.
could be it. I've also hypothesized that maybe there's a percentage of souls that are incarnate on the earth that aren't involved in the sort of spiritual enterprise in some kind of way, that they're here maybe for different, maybe there are different purposes for why we are here, and some of us are here on a really kind of
Yeah.
self-development kind of oriented purpose, where we're trying to evolve, spiritually. And then maybe, I don't know, maybe there are some souls that are not even at that level of evolution yet to where they're engaged in this sort of thing, but maybe not. But that's just one of my
Hmm.
hypotheses that I've thought about as to why there are only some
Yeah.
people that go through that life review.
I don't know if there are other souls that come here. There is this amnesia that when you come here, you forget where you came from and previous existences and stuff. So I don't know. It's how that would work from higher vibratory souls. Let's say an archangel suddenly took on a physical body. Chances are he would not need to go through a life review. That it could be likely. But there are, being an astral traveler, I know there are people that they die and they have no clue what's going on. Because all their life they believe that when I go through the life and I die, there is nothing. Well, then they find out that, well, I'll be dang, I was wrong. Now what do I do? If you have no spiritual knowledge at all, you don't know where to go unless somebody come and get you. And that usually happens. But we have this thing called ghosts. Who are they?
Hmm.
They are disembodied souls. They are extra life or outside of life entities. Some of these things have never had a physical body, but they're just things that is there. They're not necessarily good ones. But I have been out there and I have run into people, and most of them are atheists. They have no clue what's going on. Some of them don't even know why they're dead. And when they're there, that's not their home. That's not where they should be. If we really know what we're doing, we could tell them, hey, you're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to go home. So use the telephone, the spiritual telephone. Yeah, there is one. And
Mhm.
We can tell them how to use that phone. It is simple. As a disembodied entity outside of the physical, they are all spiritual in nature. All communication happens by telepathy. Your mom that died 13 years ago when you're out there, she also now is in spiritual form, communicates by telepathy. So use the spiritual telephone by visualizing your mom or someone in front of you. See the way they look and tell them in your mind, tell them, come and get me.
Mhm.
I am here, come and get me. Chances are very good that she, wherever she is in the quantum existence outside, could get the message and come and get them. And then when she comes, she'd probably say something like, okay, you graduated now, so let's go home. She will bring you to where she is. If she was a higher, more knowledgeable soul, you will go to her level of existence, which most of the time probably would be a lot better than where you were, not knowing what's going on. So that is a way to escape the ghost realm, which is the lower part of the astral world. Now, there's one more thing here. There's a hair in the soup, and that is that there is something. I read a statistic on this that somebody put together. How statistics are always created on the spur of the moment. We know that, but they said there was 1 or 2% that had a really bad experience. They found themselves in hell. They saw other people laying on the ground in flames, screaming, and they had all kinds of nasty stuff happening in front of them. The very few, but that usually would come about if that person did something really bad in the past, and if they listened to their preacher, which is there for one purpose, to create a fear in you so you'll keep giving them your money. It's a business. When they believe that because of what I did, I'm going to hell, it is very likely they could end up in a place like that for a moment. Because your mind will have brought you there. But there is salvation in that one too, and that is two things. First of all, you can think yourself out of there. You can tell yourself, I do not belong here. And then use the telephone. Get your mom again to come and get you. Or forgive yourself for what you did. I have it on, could I say, higher authority that by forgiving yourself for the negativity of what you had done, you can erase karma. With all the nasty stuff you've done to people in the past, it is there only as a learning experience, and there is no judgment if you forgive yourself. If you still feel like, oh, I really did bad and I can't, if you can't forgive yourself, or if you believe that what you did was bad and I need to be punished for it, chances are the karma will stick with you. And when you go through your life review, they're going to ask you, do you want to go back and redo that so you can get it right the next time? And you may select to do that if you're dumb enough to do it.
So, could that be part of the reason for the life review? So here's my model, real quick, and I believe it sort of nicely corresponds to what you're saying. When you part ways from the body and you disembody, you find yourself, I think normally, unless you are like a really, spiritually advanced soul, then I think you can maybe potentially skip this sort of interdimensional sort of way station realm. But when you find yourself in this realm, it seems to be the idea is that you have to refine your vibration at that point. Somehow you have to refine your vibration. Beings sort of participate, in this process and sort of help you do this in some ways. And then, interestingly, there are cases when there are dark beings who meet people in this interdimensional realm, and seemingly through instilling fear and stuff, take them downward. I've heard of cases like this. But so you have to refine your vibration, and I think part of what you have to do is you have to release the stuck energy, the sort of emotions, the attachment to things, and maybe the self-loathing or what have you. And the life
Yeah,
review kind of, gives you that perspective. Suddenly you're aware of, conceptually of what's going on here.
yeah,
And then you realize, oh, this is all a school, essentially, like I was learning lessons all along. I see, and then it sort of facilitates that letting go of whatever it is, that you're holding on to, that you need to forgive yourself for, because you understand then that this was all practice, this was all, learning, a lesson.
yeah. And if people want to learn more about this, chances are that they will do well in getting one of the books that I wrote on spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. I talk at length about what to expect and how it works on the other side. And I think from my experiences, I've been doing astral travel for quite a while, and actually anymore I'm not really all that good at it, because there are times when I can't even get out. So no,
Mm.
but I think that we have to be centered in our mind, and we have to create a certain vibration in ourselves in order to do this right. And there's a process for that. I teach also astral travel in the book, and I do also that on the mastermind session that we are doing on Sundays, Nori and I. And this is something that people can get involved with and get to learn. So I'm going to throw it out there. If you want more information on this, either go to yeah, there you go. You can go to Amazon and put my name in there, and the book will come up, and you can look at all the different subjects that is in the book, and you will probably find something that you can't live without. You just go look at it. But if you want to be part of a mastermind group where we actually learn how to do these things, send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com, and I'll get the email and we'll send you some information and a link to come and check it out. But an astral traveler may not always be traveling as in the astral vehicle, because it's kind of, there are two ways to do this. You have the astral vehicle leave the body. It can get out there and see and observe, but the astral vehicle has no intelligence of its own. It only operates from memory. And you can also see that you are connected to the physical body with a silvery cord. If you are out there and you see no cord, and it's more lit up than it is in the astral world, then you are not traveling in the astral vehicle anymore. You are traveling by consciousness.
Remote viewing, essentially.
Yeah. Some call it soul travel, and I'm good with that. It's not really that, but it's okay. You have no limitation on distance if you're traveling by consciousness. The astral vehicle is tethered to the body. So if you go so far that you are running out of substance in the cord, you're going to snap back to the body because that cord will not break. If that happens, you're going to hurt all over when you wake up. Because when you come back like that, it hurts all over. But in the traveling by consciousness, I had in the past experimented a little bit with this. I tried to get as high as I could up in the higher vibration. And I could get a little bit. There was one time, and I've never been able to go back there since. Of course, I haven't tried that often. But I found myself in a place where everything around me was just bright white light. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, no floor, no ceiling, no walls, no other people that I could see, but I could feel them. I could feel other entities in the room or whatever that was. And I could feel telepathic conversations in form of visualized images and concepts and things like that. And then I just kind of collapsed out of there and came down lower again because it was probably at the limit of what my vibration could handle. So when he said about 1991 years ago, when he said, "In my Father's house there is many rooms," he's right.
Mm-hmm. The different planes.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you were able to travel up the dimensions? Like, it wouldn't be quite the same as just sort of moving in a direction through space. I would think, although I'm not an astral traveler and I have no experience with this, that you would have to maybe in the moment, do some kind of spiritual
Yeah.
exercise or meditation, even to clear.
Yeah,
Or how does that work?
meditation is very important in order to get to the point where you can do things. But when you want to accelerate out of the astral worlds, which is the very bottom of the astral world, is the garbage dump of the spiritual world. You don't want to go there. There's nothing good down there. But the higher vibration, everything is bliss. You feel wonderful. You feel like, do I really want to go back? No, I want to stay here because it feels so good.
So is the feeling comparable to what people feel during a near-death experience, which they describe as just out of this realm, kind of peace and comfort? And I love the stories of, a lot of people say this, when they're told that they have to go back, they look for somewhere to hold on to.
Yeah, I don't want to go back. Especially if you had a car accident, you're missing an arm or something, you really don't want to go back. But no, but there are other things. I think if people want to pay the price to learn astral travel, there's a new world opening up for them. Literally a new world. And when I say pay the price, that is in the form of time and practice. I think it took me maybe a month and a half, or maybe even more, to learn how to do this, to get out of the body the first time. And when I did, I looked back at myself laying in that bed, and it scared the you know what out of me. Because I'm wondering, did I die? Did I die?
Yeah, a lot of people think they die, that they must have died if they're outside the body.
And I, as soon as I thought that, I tried to get back in my body and it didn't work. So I started moving around the room and realized this is what I've been trying to do. So I'm moving around the move, and I moved into other rooms, and then not much was going on. I was just looking around, and then I got back in the body. But you can go places. Let's say you live in California and you want to go and visit your mom, let's say living in Florida. You can do that. And you think yourself there. You get out of the body in California, visualize your mom, and you say, I'm coming to see you. And you get drawn towards her. If you want to do something else really outrageous, go out, get up into higher altitudes, look around for a spaceship, and tell yourself, I will visit a flying disc. I will visit extraterrestrials in their ship. You may have to practice with this a little bit, but you can actually find one. You can go up to it, stop before you go in, because you don't necessarily know what's inside. Stop outside. If you have a good feeling about it, just float through the wall into the ship. I did this, and it worked. I got inside, I looked around, everything was empty. I got in the room, and there was a hallway, kind of a curved hallway, and I floated down the hallway, and I could see open doors on the side, and I got in to one of the rooms, and there were people in it doing things, and one of them made eye contact with me, but he turned around and ignored me. There were several that saw me, but they ignored me. So I kind of floated around for a while, and then I kind of started to feel like I was not welcome. So I floated back out, and I went back home.
So
You can have experiences like that. Wouldn't that be fun? I tell you, it is worth the 30, 40, 50 days of practice, to do things like that. You should really try it.
So Augie, let me ask this question, and I've been told this before, but I'm going to ask you because you are experienced with this. Now, anyone that gets into astral traveling, is there a danger? Can you not come back? Because I mean, if you don't come back, you would probably just be dead. Apparently, is there any kind of risk or danger to doing astro traveling?
Well, the answer is yes or no. Let me cover the no. First of all, there is nothing physically out there that can hurt you. You cannot hurt your physical body out there. I don't care how bad it looks. That usually
and it's not even your physical body, right? It's
Yeah.
just your consciousness.
And
or your astral.
if you get so far that you can't go any further, you snap back and you'll be back in your body. Now, if you go out there by consciousness, you don't have the automatic snapback feature in place. You have to think yourself back to your body. Now, on the other hand, when you go out there, you ask, is there any dangers? There's nothing that can hurt your consciousness because it is only a spiritual entity. But what you see and observe can create a mental scar by memory. If you happen to see something that is so bad that it made an enormous impression on you, if you go to the moon and go inside, you're going to find things that you don't really want to see. How they treat people, slaves that they bring from Earth up there to work in the factories, abductees. But you don't want to see, you don't really want to go there unless you know what you're doing and know what to expect. But if you see something that's so bad, make a mental scar, and you can't get rid of it. It's there. And then when you come back, that could create a mental scar that'll prevent you from leaving the body later. Yes, I said inside the moon there is manufacturing plants where, I mean, 200,000 children in the United States are disappearing every year. Where do you think they go? Yeah,
And I would point to
some of
the testimony of Tony Rodriguez as being a very credible account of what happens
Yes.
in these facilities, mind control programming,
yeah.
and all the rest of it. Um,
So there's stuff up there that you really don't want to go see because it could create mental scars that'll become a log in the road for you.
and so that's an inhibition with astral travel. If you just got even without encountering something in the astral prior to learning astral traveling, you've got some kind of trauma in your past somewhere, or some kind of fear that you're holding on to, or something, or lower dense negative energy stuck in your energy field, that this can interfere with your ability potentially to astral travel.
Yeah, it could.
Uh,
If you're in a bad mood, forget it. You probably won't get out. You gotta, in a meditative state, you have to let go and you gotta raise your vibration. Think of there's a process for this. So um, I actually teach a class on it under the mastermind that we are doing. So you could go through that and then you could learn how to do it. It's simple. I also talk about it in the book. So if you have the book, you'll be all right.
Can astral travel be in conjunction with, let's say, hallucinogenics? Let's say uh, psilocybin. If you use psilocybin, it can clear your brain to get you to that plane you need, correct?
That's what I hear. I have never tried any drugs. I haven't even tried marijuana, so I don't know. I just, but I hear other people saying that they can, in some cases, leave the body and go places.
and certainly there are some like DMT that
Yeah,
just thrust you right out of the body,
yeah,
in an instant, and which is seems to be astral travel, when you're in these realms
yeah, yeah,
with these entities.
yeah. It's there's another world out there. It's one that is totally wide open for us to explore.
In
And
in
if we,
in in and stupendously expansive, from what I understand. One of the
yeah,
things about it that I've been given to understand is that it's just there's no end to it. The astral is just almost infinite, but maybe limited though insofar as being tethered by a cord potentially.
yeah,
Uh,
that will not get you to another galaxy. You're going to run out of astral substance in the cord. But consciousness, yes, you could go to another galaxy. And I haven't done that, but I have roamed around, here a little bit. But when you get so far away, you don't see Earth anymore. Don't worry about it. There's this safety valve in the universe, and that is that you will always make it home. All you have to do is to think yourself home, and you will be brought home.
Now, what about like past traumas? And I hate to use this word, but what about your inner demons? Can you, because we're dealing with the conscious, can you run into some of your inner demons?
Well, I don't know about that. I fired all of mine, so I don't have any. But there are people that have so-called inner demons. They could be possessions. That could be attachments by negative spiritual entities. Yeah, these things
You know, I
happen.
know of all the good that astral travel can have, there's always that potential for, you know, you come out of your body and you are fighting some kind of inner demon, if you want to call it. I hate calling it a demon, but some kind of really bad thing that happened in your life, something very traumatic that you would have to confront.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you need to learn before you go out. You got to protect yourself, put yourself in a bubble of bright white light. And whenever you get out there, you think that bubble into existence. When you get out there, it's still there. And other entities will see it. The negative ones, they'll leave you alone because they don't like that light. But the positive ones, they will get drawn to you. But on the other, you brought up something here that is worth talking about, and that is that once you're out there, there could be other entities coming to you because they see who you are, and they are needy. They want to know what is going on. Why am I here? Is my wife okay? Could you give her a message? They have all kinds of things they want to know and tell you to do, to the point where you really don't want anything to do with them. But they are so needy, they can follow you home. So you could end up with something in your house that is there, and during the day when you're not out of the body, you'll never know it. But they're hanging around, and that's not a good thing.
And they're hanging around because they know that you're doing astral
Yeah.
travel and you're going back and forth, and you're an avenue for them to potentially get a message through to someone in the physical.
Yeah. And there are entities there anyway. I see them around the house here. I got several living with me in this house. And whenever, you know shadow people, I see them right at the corner of my eye here, 90 degrees to the side. I can see something out there just tall. When I look over there, it's gone. And there's a reason for that. But because the periphery of your retina in the back of the eye can pick up higher vibratory light than the center can. So when
okay, that's the first time I've heard that. I've always been wondering why.
So when you look out the side, you can see the shadow. But when you look over there, it's gone. So now the people living here, I don't mind. They live here too, so they're okay. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, same with me. I just price that in with living in physical dimension, encompasses, that there's other things in the non-physical that are here with you all the time, everywhere, that you just need to reconcile with.
Yeah. Well,
so a shadow being is not, people, that kind of carries a dark connotation to it, but it's essentially, you're just seeing some entity or consciousness out there, and it just appears in a dark form, but it doesn't necessarily suggest, that it's of a lower vibration, or does it?
I think I got 3 or 4 living here. I don't know. I can't see them apart, but there is several, and one of them is kind of almost black, but the other two, they're not black. They're kind of light gray. I can see as a color.
Ah, okay.
So they're not really that black.
Interesting. I've seen one before that was dark, but it was also simultaneously shimmering. There was a kind of shimmer to it, which I don't know what that was, but
lately I've gotten some flashes of light going on off to the side also. The last year or so, I've had quite a bit of that.
Yeah, I have that too. Yeah, I call that astral lights.
Mm-hmm.
And that can actually, we'll have to get into this again in another conversation. That can actually develop into, because entities on the other side can create those lights for you to see in your peripherals, or I don't see them actually only in my peripherals. I'll see them anywhere in my visual field.
Yeah.
and it can actually develop into a communication system where flash can mean yes, etc. And I had this happen, although I have since disbanded this process because it turned out to be too much noise and not enough signal, as far as
Oh,
accuracy and so forth.
yeah.
But anyhow.
Hmm.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, we covered quite a bit, and I definitely would like to revisit this topic. This is I find near death experiences and beyond that you was talking about, Augie. I find those very interesting and fascinating, especially when you start getting into the shadow people, and it's just very incredible. And
Yeah.
Jim, is there anything you want to close with?
No, I guess we'll wrap it up. We're already over 2 hours, so.
How about you,
Yeah.
Augie? Anything you want to
Covered a
close
lot.
with?
Anything that you will find outside of the body is non-physical, and when you are there with them, a little bit into the higher vibrations, maybe fifth, sixth dimensional existence or so, there are entities out there that is all light. And whenever you are or observe them, you'll feel the bliss vibration coming, or the love. Some of them can be 1,000 feet tall, huge, and some of them are smaller.
Yeah. That's that. I tell you, this was a great show. I had a wonderful time, and Augie, we got to get back with you on all these different things. You are a world of knowledge, and if somebody wants to talk to you about astral travels, things like that, what do they got to do to contact you, Augie?
Well, go to Broadcast Team Alpha and send us a message. There's a little place where you can click on that, and this page come up where you can send me a message, and I'll get the email, and I'll get in touch with you. Or if you send me an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com, you can come and visit and check out the mastermind. You got to remember, the mastermind, that is when two or more minds are united in harmony. They create a third mind, which has the potential mind power of the two or more of them multiplied by each other. So if 1,000 people get together, concentrate on one thing, see it already accomplished. Now you have 1,000 times 1,000. That is a mind power of 1,000,000 minds, and that is very powerful. That is why we do incredible things on that mastermind. It seems like we create out of seemingly nothing sometimes, for healings and for money issues and for whatever.
Yeah. Please, everyone, go check out Augie's website. If you have questions, send them to him. This is a phenomenal show, everybody.
Yeah, I'll also go to Amazon and put my name in there, and you can have a look at what's in that book I talked about. That'll teach you how to use your mind in ways you normally would think would be impossible.
Yeah, and I'm gonna share that real quick before we go. This is the Amazon. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So spiritual science. Everybody, go pick up a copy. Let me see here. Okay, couldn't remember what screen I was on here. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Augie. Jim, thank you, and a wonderful show. I cannot wait to revisit all this again in the near future.
Yeah, you just call and I'll be there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranomalypodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.